Thank you all for coming. I appreciate it. This is a webinar that I've been looking forward to hosting, talking about the new AIM K8 CAN bus keypad and the technology that's behind that, and some of the stuff that how we got here, what this new product is, and some of the stuff that's coming in the future, and taking some of the questions from the folks that are here live. Those of you that are here live, make sure you put those into the question box. Robbie and I will get to those as we can. Those of you that are watching this later, any of the links that we do will be available in the description box of the YouTube video that you're watching. So keep that in mind. And with that, let's go ahead and get started. We're happy and pleased to have Robbie Yeoman back joining us again. He's done a lot of webinars with us, and just a great guy. He's been working here at AIM since about the time that I have been. So we've been working together a long time,
Yeah.
and been around here quite some time. He's the chief technology officer for AIM Sports. Long time passion for racing and electronics. And the more I'm around him, I see that all the time, and it's a wonderful thing. And one of the new things that he's been kind of heading up with us is creating custom wiring uh, harnesses for data systems and chassis, and that's a maybe you could touch on that just a little bit at some point during during your talk today, Robbie. What's going on in that part of it? The Such a high skilled and does such great work. I've seen a lot of examples of it, and it's good looking stuff. Many time webinar co-host Robbie, thanks for joining us again. I appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having me, Roger. It's always good to be back in the chair with you.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll have a good time here. But the what I'd like to start off with, I think what I'm going to do is stop with the share of mine so everybody can see us and talk a little bit as we just kind of just get into talking about the technology and what is the keypads, what does it do, why do we have them, why do people use them, what do they work with on different AIM devices, and things like that. Give us an introduction to CAN bus
The
keypads.
keypad. The keypad is, in my opinion, it's just an elegant step forward in technology. So we have uh, the classic analog switches or dials, and it's been nice to flip a switch and have something happen. Flip that switch, fan turns on. Flip the switch, or push the button, engine starts. But from a wiring standpoint, getting all of those switches done, building your panel, and having everything um, evenly spaced, and I mean, my OCD kind of kicks in, and I have to draw like scribe lines and make sure that they're all in the right place, and then you have labels on top of it. And so that's ring terminals, wiring, something to process all of this new analog information, and it kind of ate up at a lot of our analog inputs for data systems or for power distribution modules. So the keypad really kind of streamlines that, and it pushes a lot of the work from physical to electronic. So we are now programming instead of wiring. But the keypad, I don't know if this will pick up.
Oh
Put
yeah.
it right in front
Oh
of my
yeah.
face.
There you
But
go.
the keypad, this is an 8-button keypad, and it's small, it's lightweight, it's evenly spaced, and we have the ability to put uh, useful information for what the button is. Some type of user cue that activate neutral or start the vehicle, stop the vehicle, enter pit speed limiting. So those are just the button inserts, and it's all done in our application when we use it with an AIM hardware system with this cable, and that's it. So it's a very small
One
cable,
connection. I understand
one
you can
connection.
actually turn on lights and colorize lights and things like that as well, right?
Mhm. Absolutely. So the amount of information that we can give to a driver is now expanded, because before you would pick a button and maybe it had a backlight and you'd have to run power and ground to your button to get that backlight to work. But then you were kind of fixed. If it was green or if it was red, it was always going to be green or red. So a little bit limiting on what you could do or how you could change your vehicle. Now we have RGB LEDs that can easily give you um, a backlight to let you know that the keypad is on, and then indicate that the button has been triggered with another light. So I like to use green to, green is good, green is go. So I'll have activation statuses that just when I push this button, we'll have a green LED, and I'll know everything's good. And then I can further give myself more information by giving an error report, so I can use red to if something has happened with my power output. And this is really kind of working with PDMs, and there's a lot of information coming back and forth. But if I have a short circuit or an overcurrent or over temperature, I can then use that to signal the keypad that, like, hey, this circuit has failed. Like, yes, the button is on, but the circuit also failed, so it's not working. And it's just that type of peace of mind. I mean, I guess it's not peace of mind, but knowing that you have that type of failure before your temp starts skyrocketing and you're having to push the button on and on and on. And it's like, is it on? I don't know, because the engine's running and I can't hear the diff pump. So it's just a wonderful new feature for users to kind of play around with and grow. You can do multi-state buttons. So like,
And this is technology that we've had available for customers in the past, but this is the first time we've had our own. What has been available in the past? How have we handled this in the last years or two?
so we integrated the Blink Marine keypads into our software, and we use the CAN open protocol to like make the data coming from the keypad, process it at the PDM, and then send back the user information. So we still had the same feature-rich, like, color LEDs that I was just talking about, but it required a decent amount of processing power. We had to receive this momentary state. So a user presses a button and it's just a bit that goes from 0 to 1 and then goes back to 0. We had to take it in and create effectively like a status variable that made it into a toggle, so it latches to the on position. Then we have to send back that, yes, it's latched and we want a green color. So we have to send that back to, so it's just a heavy amount of CAN traffic and a lot of processing. With our keypads, we actually moved the processing logic to the keypad, and that's for our keypad as well as our open version to be used with other applications. So I guess we should probably introduce the open keypad. We
Okay.
have two versions. We have our AIM hardware keypad, which is designed to work beautifully with our hardware systems, and it's just a really easy integration. Point and click and configure. You're done. We also have an open protocol version, which allows users to receive in CAN information, send out CAN information, and also program the button to do all of the feature-rich programming that we come to expect from a button. So that can be used with anybody's hardware system. So if you're already invested in another power distribution module or another data system, or you just want the ability to have a high speed, high processing, very flexible keypad, we have a version for you.
And not to take you out of your game on the keypads alone, but AIM is starting to take a bit of that in some other devices as well, right?
Yeah.
Thinking that direction of making some of these products available for folks with different systems.
Right, right. We've done the ACC, the open version, so that can be used. It's an analog to CAN converter, takes in analog information and sends it out via CAN, so that you can really streamline, again, the wiring of the vehicle by sending 4 wires, CAN high, CAN low, power, and ground throughout the vehicle, and then having these nodes of sensor technology. So you can have a node on by each wheel without having to run all of the sensors, reference, signal, ground, all of it.
And anytime you run with the open CAN type thing is this can even talk to other ECUs. It's not only PDMs or data loggers. It
Right.
can talk to anything that brings in CAN messages, and you can trigger and do
Yep.
things with these keypads or the GPS system or the ACC to ACC
Yeah.
open.
And the GPS is another beautiful one. So we have a very powerful GPS
Yeah,
module that
very good.
that can now be leveraged in so many different applications. So we even have the Pro version, which has the built-in IMU on the GPS module. So now you have a 6-axis IMU with 3-axial gyro, 3-axial accelerometer to send that information to an ECU to now start using that information in just things.
Wherever, yeah,
Yeah.
anywhere. Yeah, at this point, yeah. Well, perfect. So, how do what's the next step we want to chat about as far as keypads and AIM devices?
Well, so right now we have the 8-button keypad, which I'm happy to show here today. And we are awaiting stamps for the next button configuration. So we'll have a 6-button version, and we'll also have a 15-button version that will have the same basic concept. So everything that we discuss here today will easily work with the 6 buttons and the 15-button keypads. So we will shortly have those up and running.
Any talk of other than that, or is that where you think we're going to kind of land as far as three different configurations?
No, those are just that's the three. That's the trifecta. If we have those, we have a solid offering that can
Yeah.
be easily adapted to people. So if you want 16 buttons, you run two eights. You know, if you want 15 buttons, you can run the 15 button keypad, or you can move them for different areas in the vehicle. So I'd like to see 4 button keypads um,
That's
and
actually the one that was in my mind
mm,
was a four, but because the size and the way that they can be butted up together, or and certainly wired in,
mhm.
in parallel, that you can stack them wherever, however you wish,
Yeah,
right? The
yeah.
numbers.
And we have a great way of stacking them because they're all serial number identified. Um,
Uh,
the previously you'd have to like identify your node. So this is speaking mostly with Blink Brain, but many other keypad manufacturers use this technology where you have to program your keypad to have a different identification, and so you talk to it differently. So if I'm talking to CAN ID 15 keypad, then I'm going to use ID 615. And if I'm talking to the ID 16 keypad, then I would use 616. And so um, it's just a lot of programming that you still have to do. So even though we're we're pushing more of the programming into the keypad, we're streamlining that aspect quite a bit.
Chuck asked a question in the chat. I think he's trying to get into the Q&A, but I thought now would be maybe a good time to do it. He says he has an 8-button Blink keypad, only about a year and a half old.
Mhm.
Well, you've talked about a couple of the differences, but what are the bigger differences of why somebody would, if they were lining up to buy one of these two, that onboard memory and onboard processing, is that the biggest deal? Or if they have an AIM device, it's certainly closer to plug and play. It's not, obviously you have to do a few things, but what do you see as the big difference, and the best reasons to pick the AIM?
Um, so the centralized logic. So being able to program the keypads and set your programming with a USB input, so I can program my keypad from my computer. I can plug it into my computer, and the USB is capable of powering it up and giving me the lights and the activation states, and I can play around with the keypad without having to be in the car or having to set up an entire bench test with the PDM and or the data system. So it gives me a little bit ease ease of use because it's just a USB cable that plugs into the back of it. So it doesn't have to be installed. And then the speed at which we can process what's happening is substantial because there's a substantial processor in the keypad. It is not a simple device, it is a complex device. And it allows us to really um, increase the rate at which we send the data out. So before I mentioned that we had to receive a momentary signal, send back the value, and then change the color. Now it's all processed at the keypad, and the information is just sent out. So the response time is substantially increased doing it this way.
What about power draw between the two? Are they similar?
Yeah, actually, they're quite similar.
Even with that additional
And
power
with the additional,
inside the AIM, it's
yeah.
the power draw is about the same.
Right, you wouldn't notice the difference, and if you're thinking of how you're going to manage, adding something like this, I mean, we're talking less than an amp
Okay.
of current, and that's for either of the keypads, and I mean that's full brightness, all
Okay.
LEDs on, um, working as hard as it can.
Really a non-issue on either one of them.
Right.
So,
Mhm.
okay. Perfect. Where do you want to go next?
Well, we can talk about the two different types because they'll kind of live differently in your car. So we have the AIM hardware, and it's managed by our proprietary CAN bus. So it plugs in just like your GPS module does, or your Lambda controller, or your TC hub. So you can plug it right into your data hub and do the configuration in the configuration of the master device, which would be like the PDM. So you would open up your PDM configuration and select the K8 keypad, do your configuration, send it to the main hardware system. No USB required. Now the open version, the idea is that this open version is going to be used for other devices. It can also be used for ours. So there is a simple button that allows you to basically just click right onto, much like our SmartyCam 3s, you're able to just say it's connected as a standalone or it's connected as a master device. And that if when you say it's connected as a master device, it's it's going to be connected to one of our data logging systems, and it assumes the role of its non-open version. So programming becomes very easy. So the open versions can go, they can do either option, unique broadcasting or AIM broadcasting to live on our CAN bus.
They're dual, and which
Mhm.
makes them pretty
Dual
powerful that
purpose.
way too.
Mhm.
Use them either way.
Right. So we can connect the open version. We'll have basically a 7-pin cable to a USB input that's provided. That will be required for the programming of it, and then you'll also have a 7-pin to CAN in power. So you'll have power, ground, CAN high, CAN low, so a 4-wire interface if you're going to be using it for another device.
And you've touched on it a couple of times, different things, but as of right now, the K8, what AIM devices will that connect to? Is it just a PDM device at this point?
Yes, the PDM is the first hardware system that, I mean, it just needs it. It needs the K8
Yes.
keypad. Integration into our other devices will come. It's um, I guess not quite the priority because the data systems, they usually have a button integration, and I can see where certain situations of having a keypad that would send information out would be useful. But that's also why we have an open version, so we can easily use the open version in the same way that we do, or we would just do a little bit of programming and use the open version on our CAN2 bus and utilize it that way.
Okay, gotcha. Gotcha. Yeah, I can see that there's times, if you can't reach the, buttons on the steering, there's things you can do, right? Turn on a camera, whatever you might want to have happen.
Right, you nailed it. The turning on the camera, that was the first one that
That's
popped
the
in my
first one a
mind.
lot of people want. Yeah.
Or just a one-button memory recall. So you could have like a keypad that was more centralized to where your hand is, and you can pull the data and
Change
yeah,
pages too.
change pages.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so we can do all of that with the open version right now.
Okay. Perfect. Perfect. Okay. So where do we Matt mentions in a
Lap
in a
marker.
in a
I
note there.
like that.
That's something that and I didn't chat with Emiliano on the software side, but I know that's been something we've all been wanting, is be able to push a button and end up with a marker in your data file, right?
Right. So
And
so PDMs can do that now.
already, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So and that's just because of the status variable logic and the just we record so many um, aspects of what's happening on the PDM level. And Matt's right, it would totally work. I didn't think to put that together, but a lap marker could be a great integration for one of the buttons of the keypad when using a data system.
And even trigger that onto your SmartyCam video could be at the same time,
Right?
obviously. So
SmartyCam video triggers and in your data it's recorded because it comes into us as CAN data.
absolutely. Okay. Okay. Where do you want to go next? You want to start to show how to configure one, or do you have something else you want to chat about before we actually jump in and look at it?
Well, I would like to touch just on the inserts
Okay. Oh,
while
yeah.
I have the
Perfect.
camera. The
Yeah. Perfect.
inserts are a clear um, a clear plastic, and they're written on the back with they're done with the calligraphy. Um, and I know I'm going to butcher that one, but
Easy for you to say.
it's
I'm
it's
not even going to
printed
try.
it's printed on the back of the button. So when we do a cutout, it's very elegant to
Oh,
have. We can maintain the backlight. The button's technically clear, but then your fingers won't rub off on any
yeah.
of
Not clear
the
enough.
etching. So the buttons are really easy to load into the hardware. The rubber insert, and if you guys have
Go the
ever
other way.
used a
There you go.
wood-bearing
There you
keypad,
go.
um, the rubber insert, it just allows you to push it right in and then uh, rotate it into place. So,
And pop.
and
There
then
it
it's it.
is.
So then you have your button configuration, and these are printed in house. So we have the ability to really start growing our button requirements and our button needs. So if we're not bound to another company to make these for us. So it makes it nice to just print one of buttons if we're working with a big manufacturer or something like that. We can.
And what does it take in order for somebody to have a special one? Do they just need to have a graphical image that they can send us, and we can turn that into the
Yeah,
file?
an idea. Yeah, the first thing is the image, right? You have to have an idea of what you need, and then you can send it, and we can then kind of see how it's going to look once we kind of make it black and white image,
Yeah.
and see if it's going to present, like if it's going to give us the look and feel that we're looking for, and then we
Almost
can
needs to
kind
be a
of go.
negative, right? Because the light comes
Yeah,
through in the
right,
backwards way, right? So,
right.
okay, perfect. So, and it looks like they're pretty darn easy to put on and take off. What about most of these are inside of race cars, but obviously there's going to be a lot of them in off-road vehicles.
Mhm.
They must be pretty waterproof, dustproof. The existing ones plus ours. What do you know about that?
Yeah, so the units themselves, because it's a single mold design, the ingress rating is really only from the seam where we put the two together, and that has a pretty impressive water ingress. So um, we tested with pressure, without pressure, with submersion, and we were at like a pressure traveling at about 100 meters per second, without any type of ingress into the device itself. Now, it's hard to establish an IP rating when we're dealing with something like that, because we have a very specific need. Like, we want to be able to. It's not enough to just submerge it, but it's also, we have to build the machines to test the adequate stages of the IP rating. So we have to be able to prove that we're sending, 150 psi, or the stream is no larger than 2 inches in diameter, and things like that. Right? It's
Yeah,
fast. We
yeah,
we
100 meters
blasted
a
it.
second, 223 miles per hour. Yeah, that's water coming at it from a steam cleaner, right? And
We
then
blasted it.
and then there's other tests where how deep in the water it needs to go, that kind of thing.
Right.
So
So the IP rating, it does take time, and to actually state an IP rating is not something that I'm ready to do here
get the
today.
official number,
But
but it's pretty
right,
darn water
yeah,
resistant. It looks like.
I can tell you how we've tested it so far.
We've done okay so far,
Yeah.
right?
hmm
Yeah,
Um,
perfect. Okay.
so I think right now we could get into discussing some of the configuration differences between an open and a non-open K8 keypad. So
Perfect. Go ahead and share your screen,
that's
and
my turn, right?
yep,
All right.
and then we should be able to. I'll let you know when it pops up, and there it's starting to. Yep, we see it right now. So you're in good
All
shape.
right. Okay, so I have two configurations that we'll be doing today. The PDM version, with using it as a strictly an expansion device, and then we'll be moving into the can open version, which I think we'll spend a little bit more time on how to receive information in, how to process information out, because it's something that's going to be required on the open version. Um, so much like our configuration of any type of expansion device, we have a serial number identification. So when it's connected to the CAN bus, I can type in the serial number manually, or I can use the get expansion serial number button, where it would pull up and kind of query the CAN date. It will look for serial numbers that are appropriate for the K8 keypads, and it'll pull them up. You click them there, and it just copies and pastes it into here. This is what's going to identify the keypad. So if I wanted to add more keypads, this is how we're going to basically separate those out. So if we have this serial number, I can actually
Yeah.
run a new K8, and so I have K80, K81, and it would just all be done with serial number identification. So now I've kind of hurdled over the Blink Marine keypad, where I want to use two of those, and I have to send CAN messages and validate that the mess. I mean, it requires a CAN analyzer to program them correctly. So now we're just able to click and click, and away they go. We can add a few different buttons, and we'll kind of focus with some of the features. So we have a simulation, and we can do a check on power on. So this will allow you to flash certain ones when the device powers up.
Hmm.
Now, go ahead.
If people are used to creating events or status variables, this is going to look very similar when you start to configure a keypad inside of the Race Studio 3 software, right?
Yes, absolutely. So we can go in, we can name them. The keys are numerically um, numbered, so button one, key one, name. We can alter this to be whatever it is that we want it to be, and then this is just like an overall history of how the button is configured. And we can double click here and open it up to where we can set the name. We can set the type of button that we want, whether we want it to activate as a momentary, so only being triggered while the button is being pressed. So the user has to push and hold for the duration. Really good for starters. Really good for intermittent wipers or something like that, where you just want to bump it and have it like do something, but you don't want to spend a lot of time holding the button. So then the toggle is a latching variable. So we press the button once, it toggles on. We press the button again, and it toggles off. Then we have a multi-status button, and the multi-status allows us to add different states of button, and we can program how the button goes to each different state, which is a really interesting aspect. So when we have a label, we'll have off or rest, and then we can just have 1, 2, 3, and 4, and these can be, so if I want them to be wipers, they could be interim, they could be slow, they could be fast, and then we could have like a blower or something like that. And each one of these has a value that's output. Now this is what's going to be output if I'm sending this information out to go to another device. So if I'm sending it out via CAN, this is the value that's going to be broadcast out, because we can't send intermediate, we can't send slow, we have to send some type of binary data, so it's easier just to use numbers. So here we can edit the numbers that we want to send out, so that it makes it easier for, there we go. So if I see a value of a 1, it's intermediate. I can then use that for programming another device. The short press leads to is the way that you get them to jump around. So if I want to go from the short press goes to fast, when I press it once, it will immediately jump to the 3rd position and go to fast. But I might want it to go to intermediate first, and then it can go to slow, and then it can go to fast, and then fast can go to blower, and blower can go to off. And this would be a circular button. So as I click the button, it goes from off to intermediate, from intermediate to slow, from slow to fast, from fast to blower, from blower to the off position. I can also change things around by adding a timing feature, and that allows me to activate a long press. So if I wanted to skip over the intermediate, and I just wanted to go from intermediate to slow, and then slow, we'll go slow to fast, so none of that has anything different. And this can go to off. Now I can long press from off to intermediate, and so when my button is in the off position and I hold it for 0.5 seconds, it will go to an intermediate wiping position. And then I can click my intermediate wiping position and it will go off. So that is in addition to this circular button that is now on button press. I click it, it's going to go to slow, then from slow to fast, from fast to blower, and from blower to off. And you can really play around with how these long and short presses get defined. So you don't have to go through the entire button Rolodex to get to what you need to do.
Just adds a ton more power, obviously, to what you can do.
So then on these long presses, I would probably have them go to off. So that way, if I was ever in the slow, fast, or blower position, or just lost in the matrix, I know that if I just push and hold, the windshield wipers will be in an off state.
Perfect.
So this is one of the nice programming features of a button configuration, and we've had this with other button manufacturers, and we were able to do this. It requires all the processing to be done by the PDM. Here we're going to set our color. So we want a white light that's continuous for our backlight, and we're going to say that this is always true. And the reason I'm doing that is because we have priority of our variables here. So if I want to stack different, just like our shift lights and alarms, or when building alarms, there's a priority to how you build these. So if I wanted to add a new output state, we'll set this one to always true. Okay, and now I can say that when the button is on, it will be green. So button 1 equal to our slow position. I hit OK, and I'll know that will be green. I can add another output state, and we can say that at orange is going to be our fast position. Button 1 equal to fast, perfect. And I can move this to the top of the priority list if I want to. So sorting is all done with this little gear icon. So adding new ones, removing them, or moving them up or down in priority is all done through this gear icon. And this is how we can easily produce a backlight and unique activation states. Now, the priority doesn't really make a difference here because it's not possible for the button to be in intermediate and the off position. But in other situations, it absolutely can be, or in the event of an error of the power output. In a PDM, I'm actually probably moving the wipers with a power output. And if that fails for some reason, the power output short circuits or the motor is drawing more current than we can provide, then it's going to give us an error. And at that point, the priority is going to be very important because the button will still be in its on position, yet the power output will no longer be functioning. So I want to assign a priority of the button 1. We'll use red here, and we'll say that button 1, and then of course I haven't done any power outputs, but I would essentially point to a power output that is failed in some way. So we'll go back to our expansions, and now I can add my power output, and I can say that the status of this power output, so we have the mid power output 3, this is whether it's on it or it's off. Then we have the current of the power output, how much current it's actually drawing. So if you wanted to track how much your fuel pump was using, and you can kind of give yourself a heads up if it's over a certain current, it's still functioning, but it's getting closer to the limitation, you could use color identification for that. And then the status here can be equal to or different from, and then this is short circuit, open circuit, high temperature, over current, under voltage, and over voltage. So these are all of the cues when a power output has failed. So what I like to do is I like to say different from okay. If at any point in time I have a short circuit and open, it will not be okay, and this will ring true. I can sort, basically it's telling me that it's not working.
Yeah,
Why it's not
there's
working, we
something
don't
wrong.
have data.
There's something
Right.
away from where you really want it. I've always found, even in alarms and events and different things that we're doing, even before I've done this, just keeping an eye on that priority, even if there's not a direct priority problem.
Mhm.
Just the good habit of understanding and making your oil pressure the first priority, and then down, is just a good habit to get into, and it's going to become even more important when if somebody starts to program these.
I completely agree, and I've gotten so used to always building the
Yeah,
logic. So like my backlight's the lowest, and then the buttons
exactly.
are next, and then the alarm. And the alarm is the only one that requires the priority. But yeah, if you get in a good habit of like organizing it from least priority to highest priority, you won't go wrong.
Life will be good for you. Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
So we'll just touch on a couple of interesting aspects of our keypad, and this is the restore status at power on. This will remember the state that it was on. So almost like a windshield wiper or something like that. If you leave it in the on position and power down, it will remember its position. And this is part of having that processor on board, is that we can set that the wiper was left in the slow position, and we can then move it forward from there. Um, so when we boot back up, we'll turn the wipers back on, or the radiator fan, or any practical application that you'd want it to remain in its normal state. So the one I think of is when I'm running multiple fuel pumps. So if I want to change, if I want to stagger using fuel pumps, so I want to use every time the car starts, I want to use fuel 1 or fuel 2, and I want them to kind of alternate back and forth so that I don't overuse one pump and have to switch to another pump. This would help me do that. I can trigger it over to fuel 2, and then when it boots back up, it'll be remembered by that. So uh, just a little practical application. And other than that, the status variable, or the status for how long you want the button to depress, half a second is quite a bit of time. So if you could reduce it to something like 0.3, it will feel it, and this comes down to personal preference. So for me, 0.3 is kind of that magic. Like I know I've been pushing it for longer than if I just hit the button and engaged it.
especially when you're in the car, or these desert race cars have a lot of these buttons, and race cars do as well. When you have to take your hand off to go push it, you don't want to have to wait a half a second, right?
Right.
It's
Get
going to
back.
be it's going to be personal preference at some level. You're going to figure out what works for you.
Um, so we I think we've pretty much touched on how to set up the K8 keypad, set up multiple K8 keypads, and get the benefits of using our hardware. Oh, if we can activate the simulation here, so you can see it's got all of our check it power on and it's set to restore. So we can see what the button configuration will look like given certain events. Outside of that, pretty easy to set up when using it with our hardware. Um, Moving to the actual K8 configuration, the K8 Open, this is where it's going to get a little bit more complicated, and we've done a couple of previous webinars on the subjects where we talked about using CAN output as well as building XC1 files, and I think those are like CAN 101. I think that's the title of them. So those will kind of bridge the gap if we go over anything too quickly here. Um, Now we can pretty much go over only the open in the connected to AIM master section of this. So this is if we wanted to take an open keypad and use it on our proprietary CAN bus. This would allow us to just not have to do any of the programming and do the programming in the configuration like we just did in the PDM example. For this, we're going to use it for another device. And here we can get some the same button options. We have the restore values, we have the multi-status, which we did for the wiper control. We can toggle a button to be on or off. So we can set this up pretty quick. And we'll add a new one. Say that this is always true. Okay. And now when the system turns on, it's white, and when the button goes active, it will go to green. And I can set these as rest status and active status, and then I still have my long press, which I can utilize. And it gives us a little snapshot here. I can select to restore the values like we talked about, activate simulation. Now, there's two more tabs related to this configuration, and it's going to allow us to receive in CAN information. So if information needs to come to us for any reason, we can actually use our ECU database, or we can use a custom defined XC1 file that using the ECU protocol section of the software. We can build a way to receive data in. So if I want other buttons to come in, or if I want other states to be sent to me. So for example, I want to activate the red light when a power output has failed, I'm going to need to get that information into the keypad so I can activate the light given that situation. So those are kind of perfect examples of how you would want to have that information come in and out. And we build them in the ECU protocol section of our software. So building a custom CAN protocol for receiving that information in. Here, the CAN output is already going to be predefined for button 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So here we just set the CAN ID to broadcast at whatever CAN ID we desire. So if we have to hit a specific target, in this case, we get to make up our own. So my go-to is always 100. Oh, I must have used 100
It's
in
been
my
go-to already once before.
yeah, right, because this one was already 100. So interesting there. I mean, a nice feature is that we constantly check to make sure that we're not going to have any type of issues with programming our CAN buses. So here it's obviously shown us that there is a problem with the receiving protocol and the output that I want to use. So we're going to go do this again. I always use 100. Today we are going to use 300. So now I'm broadcasting my button states on ID 300. And this is going to be really dictated by the receiving protocol. So I'm saying that I'm receiving data at 1 megabit per second, and that means that I can't send it out at any other bus speed because they're going to be the same CAN bus. So receiving and sending have to match because we only have the one CAN bus. And I can also send out any of this information. So if I wanted to come in and define another payload, we'll say that this is 301. Now I can set out, let's say, engine RPM as well. Or I can send out the brightness control.
Yeah, virtually everything that's available to you.
So anything that we're receiving in can now be sent out and leveraged for your open needs. Now I know that there's probably going to be some questions on what it's sending out. So we'll go back to the buttons, and I touched on it briefly where we have these values here, and they may or may not be intuitive to know that these values are what we're sending out on the canvas. So if I want button 2 to be a 0 or a 1, we've already done that for you. So we have button 2 is going to be a 0 or a 1, and you can actually reverse this logic. So if I wanted to send the off state, I wanted it to always be on when I turned on, I can change these values, and then I'll send a 1 when the button is in the off state and a 0 when the button is in the on state. Or I can even change the labels and mix them up that way. You can kind of play around with these. But this is the data that I am sending out on the CAN bus. So when I go into my CAN output and I have just this ambiguous button 2, it's saying that button 2 is 1 byte long. We're using the button 2 channel, and we're not making any changes to it. So we're not adding anything to the value, and we're not multiplying anything to the value. We're just sending it raw, and that's going to use the button configuration value that I've shown you before. So when you're using multi-state buttons, setting those values and understanding what those values are will become important. It might be a stumbling block for some as you go through and have to know that it's going. Hopefully it goes 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, but certain situations it may not. Now, one of the things that we didn't talk about, another feature-rich aspect of it, and we can stay here in our keypad. So if we go into the buttons, we can actually kind of built in some of the command functions for you. So in the open version, you can have a button, and for this I would probably use that long press. So I would set my long press value to 0.3 seconds, and when it was in the long, I would increment the brightness control of the button, and this will increase or decrease your brightness of your keypad. It can be done right on the keypad, and we will have the ability when using our PDMs or to alter that based on other commands. So we can have other variables kind of dictate the brightness control for us. And this is the open version. We don't have a whole lot of commands because we're not really responsible for doing anything. Now, when we go back to the PDM version, we have the ability to set the same commands that you would find in the command section of our data logging system. So if I want to duplicate the next display page or duplicate the action of the next display page button or the previous display page, I can have these built into the keypad, and I can use that long press option, so I don't lose the aspect of the button. The button can still trigger on and trigger off. We're going to get a little bit deeper now and start talking about how we manage the activation of a button. And we have in a square wave signal, if you can kind of draw a rectangle in your mind, you have an activation side and you have a deactivation side. So we call them like the leading edge or the falling edge of the signal. And which one do you use? Do you use it when I push the button? Do I immediately do it, or do I let go of the button and then register that the button has been fully pressed? This is kind of like an internal debate that you always have to. How do you want the button to work? Do you want it to work as soon as it activates, or do you want to feel like that let go aspect and then it'll activate? We are using the leading edge, or the starting edge of the signal to activate our short presses, only if the variable, so it's an algorithm, but only if that variable is not continued to be pressed. So in this way, we get as fast of a response as your button can manage, but if you push and hold, we don't activate the short press activation, which allows us to use these long status variables without triggering the short status. And that was something that we just couldn't do with other keypads. it allows us to use, if I push and hold the variable or the button for zero point 0.5 seconds, I'm not going to activate my fuel pump or whatever it is that I decided to put on that button as well. So that button is truly a dual purpose. I won't go from off to short status to long. I'll just jump straight over to the long status. And of course, we can go through and do all the button configurations, but that's essentially it. Both keypads configured in under an hour. We had the CAN output information, which I know we went quickly over, but all it really is setting the CAN ID, and the buttons are already managed in there as 1 byte payloads.
And from what you've said, the open could connect to all of the different AIM data loggers that have the second CAN output, right?
Yep.
CAN connection,
Mhm.
and be able to do any number of things, and hopefully in the near future the standard one as well. Be a firmware update at some point. It won't be any cost for anybody that owns that hardware now.
Yep.
Perfect. Now would be a good time if you guys have some more questions. I know that there's been a couple of them here that have been just in the chat box, and maybe Robbie, I'll ask one of those of you right now. There
Yeah.
was something about the material of the of the new one. What does it feel like? How easy is it to clean? Things like that. What are your thoughts on that?
Um, I haven't gotten them absolutely filthy yet. However, looking because it's a one piece mold, the only thing that I could think of would be maybe like on the button seams themselves, where we insert the button insert, would be a possible for like maybe grime deposits or anything. But the buttons are so easy to remove that just I think cleaning is a simple process. You pop out the icon insert, and then you just clean the inside of it. And since you don't have to worry about water ingress at that point, because behind it is a fully sealed membrane,
Okay.
you can kind of get in there and clean it, and without worry of it getting to the main board.
And it's not aluminum anodized on the rest of the body. It's got some sort of a rubber coating on the whole thing, right?
Yes, the whole thing. The whole front is a rubber stamp that we use, so it has a grippy feel to it. Even the buttons themselves, they have this like grippy feel to it. You guys are gonna have to trust me on this one, because I wish I could send one to
Yes,
all
boy.
of you, because it feels it's a very tactile experience.
So when you put your hand down there, you cover, even if you have gloves on, you grab the entire body there. You can kind of get the shape, and then you put your finger up and push the right button, right?
Right.
Upper left one to put the horn, or whatever it is you're looking for.
Yeah.
Okay. What about and this one? And I hear these questions a lot with many different products, stuff that is aged out, stuff that is not no longer created from AIM.
Mhm.
Somebody asked the Blink Marine keypads and some of the other ones that we have that we do support now.
Mhm.
They generally speaking, AIM is always continually support that, even though we've moved on to something of our own or something like that. So, what are your thoughts about continuing to support those other products?
Oh, we will continue to support we did so much work for
Always have.
integrating it into the software, that there's really no reason to like just eliminate that work from the software, because the way that we have to communicate with it, and like we that's not changing. We use it's called a CAN open protocol layer, and it's defined. It's like the work has already been done. We'll just keep it in the software for those of you that are existing and using it, and moving forward.
Yeah, that's what we've always done in the past, and there's just no reason not to do that now. Obviously, Matt did. Those of you that are watching live back in the chat, Matt did put a link to the CAN 101 YouTube page that Robbie webinar that we had done previous. Some of the stuff Robbie just went over will be explained in deeper detail there. Those of you watching this later, I'll have that link in the YouTube chat. So, Robbie, you have done some off-road racing things, and and resetting can, I think with a keypad, resetting like the fuel levels as you're coming in for a fuel stop, things like that. You kind of described one of them there where you were resetting. I seen the options there for resetting a counter. That's
Mhm.
probably where you've used that the most, right?
Yeah, it's fantastic to reset. I mean, your odometers, your
Odometers
trip
or
meters,
counters.
or yeah, any of the counters are available to you to kind of play around with. So if we look at the command settings, which I did really go over quickly.
Reset
So
counter command.
yeah, so we have the reset counter command, and we can reset all of the odometers or just independent odometers, and then we can also use them to reset the alarms for the ones that have a button defined reset. So if oil pressure is above a certain value, we hold it until there's time to actually clear that LED. Um, and then we also have the push button command, so I can then do the menu navigation, the recall of the data that we've collected, so I can get directly into um, the data recall, and then I can use these as navigators. These are going to be like I can easily get to the next display page or a previous display page.
Chuck had a question in there. It says, if I buy a new one, how do I remove the old one? I'm assuming he has a Blink Marine. It's just as easy as going in and
It
removing the
is.
CAN device, right?
Yes, but your programming is going. So unfortunately, we have these CAN2 keypads. So if I had a Blink Marine keypad, it is as simple as removing just that. It gives you a warning by disabling general use of the keypad configuration will be lost and not recoverable. So clicking that right there and confirming it,
It's gonna do
it's
it.
gone. Right. So then it is no longer regarded by the PDM, and all of the logic is removed. But our power outputs or anything that we were to use to define those is going to suffer. We're going to have those triangle icons that will kind of notify you that, hey, this was a button that you had working here. You need to address it now. So you would simply enable your K8 keypad, define it, and then go through and fix all of your triangles.
Perfect. Now would be a good time if you have any other questions, start to add those in. We're only about just a couple minutes away from ending this. Matt did throw one out there. I don't know if you're able to see your chat there, Robbie, but he talked about the just good technique of if you're going to get in there and start playing around and trying some other things. I know this is a habit I have gotten into because I've screwed myself up a couple of times. It's just a good idea to clone. Uh, if you're learning and getting in there, just clone the one that you're working on. Go ahead and
Mhm.
do all your changes, test them out, and at the end, get rid of the old one, and then rename or whatever you need to do
Okay,
to
let me
make sure
save
that you
this
got a
one.
backup.
So I always my one of
You
the
too.
things I always do is I receive directly from the hardware, and so I will get configurations emailed to me, but I will receive directly from the hardware and see what's on there, and I will make a backup of it. So I will clone this, and I will call it like whatever it is that I want to be using. So this is webinar test. And I will do all of my work with all of the configuration that I have, but I will do it on the test. So if anything ever goes awry, we always have a backup that was established as working.
And until you send it, you still have the original one that's still on the logger at that point. So you really got two backups at this point until you resend, right?
Right, but
But
when do you know that
yeah,
it's not working?
exactly,
After you sent it.
exactly. Yeah, it always clone. I have just found that to be just a good way of doing it for me. And then even at the end of it all, when I get everything done, I like to take and export them off and put them onto a thumb drive or something. My math channels, my profiles, and my configurations tend to just go off, and in case I get another computer, that computer just totally dies or something, right? And it just good backup to have that backup. So
Yeah.
perfect. Anything else that we see here as you go, or anything else you're thinking about, Robbie, before we start to close this one up?
Well, no, we have a lot. This is a brand new product for us, so we came here today to kind of show it to you guys, let you know what we've been working on, how it's going to impact our existing customers, and we're going to continue to develop in this form. So the open and non-open versions, but I mean, I can tell you right now, we're working on the 15 and 6-button keypads right away, but this type of technology can be used in so many different shapes and forms, and I guess we're not done yet.
Yeah. The Chuck, to go back to Chuck's earlier question, he says he has an earlier one. I think a Blink added the aim one and was talking about how to take it off. Can he take it off? How easy is it to take one off? What about running both at the same time? Zero problems, right?
No, no, zero problems, because
Yeah.
one is going to come into the secondary CAN bus. The other is going to live on our proprietary bus. So they are isolated electronically from each other. The PDM will process them differently, but it has its dedicated input or dedicated methods for dealing with CAN2 keypads and dedicated methods for dealing with the AIM expansion keypad. So it will be a very easy. You can simply add to it. It'll be just an addition.
And seamless to you as the end user pushing buttons and moving stuff
Right.
around. It's very, very straightforward.
Mhm.
Okay, perfect. Anything else you'd like to add there? I don't see any other questions that are coming up now. Perfect. Great. So if you would unshare
Oh,
your
yeah.
screen, we will start to close this one up. And if you have questions in the future as things come up, make sure that we're going to give you a link here in just a moment for contact information. Either throw them into the question and answer now as you're doing this, or if you think of something later for those of you here live, or for those of you watching it on YouTube later. I'll share some contact information. Send us the questions and we'll get them taken care of for you. So let me do this and this. As we're kind of closing up, uh, I, as always with these things, I learn a ton just watching these, either preparing to give them myself or watching others that are experts at this present the information. It's always fantastic to me. And I hope all of you guys got some good information out of this as well. Uh, we do these videos, and we're working on some shorter, very much to the point videos that I've got in progress right now that you're going to start to see in the on our Learn Fast e-training video site on the YouTube page, on our YouTube page, AIM Data. Go there where you can rewatch this webinar. All of our webinars and all of our different videos are available on the YouTube page, and that'll be up there within just a couple of hours. We'll have all that up there for you to rewatch this one if you'd like to. And the as always, we're a customer support company that happens to sell racing electronics, is the way I like to put it. And we're out there at racetracks all the time. Obviously, we do the best we can with hitting as many events as we can. It's just a big part of what we do. Of course, we can't be everywhere, so there's a number there for you, the 800-718-9090. All of you have tons of email addresses for to get a hold of us. We're very, very open and available for customer support. Make sure that you give us a holler and don't fight things too much. Just give us a holler. Let us help you out. So the next webinar, don't have it totally locked in yet, but the next webinar will be in one of our evening ones. The early part of the month is late in the day. The late Tuesday ones are earlier in the day. It's kind of backwards, but we're still trying to figure out if this is something we want to continue to do. So having some in the evenings and some in the middle of the day. Um, Give me your feedback as if you like one way or the other, or if it's okay to have it be a little bit different. I'd love to hear your feedback. But the next one we're going to have is Tuesday, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, April 9th. I've got I think I've got the guests all lined up and ready to go, but it hasn't been locked down. So, but we will have something interesting, and you'll be getting emails from Zoom about when the day before and the hour before, just like you always do. So look forward to seeing everybody there. The contact information to get some further information about this or any other topic that you want there is on your screen. Robbie's been generous enough to leave his email address there, and and mine as well. So give us a holler if there's anything that we can do for you guys. If there's any questions about this keypad or anything else to do with AIM, drop us a line and let us know. So I appreciate everybody coming, and I hope you got a lot out of it, Robbie. I appreciate all the hard work and sharing information on this. We'll do some more hardware ones in the near future as well. Anything you'd like to kind of add as we're kind of closing this one down?
I can't wait for you guys to get them and see how fast they are. The response time is awesome. And I think everyone will really agree that the software interface for configuring them is by far preferred than programming with CAN via a PDF manual. Like it's a totally different approach, but it works so well.
Perfect. Perfect. And I was chatting with Emiliano this morning a little bit. One of the things we'll have in the near future is there is some new help menus coming through Ray Studio 3 that and different ways of getting there that I think we're going to talk about in one of the upcoming webinars that we're going to focus on that quite a bit. So again, thank you very much, Robbie. I appreciate all the work and Matt for running the links in the background and chatting with people, and all of you for joining us, and all of you that are joining us later. Thanks for watching the videos, and if give us a thumbs up and let us know in the comments on the YouTube if there's anything else that we can do for you. So I appreciate everybody coming. Thanks again, and we will see you at the next one next on April, whatever it was, coming up soon at the next webinar. Talk to you guys soon. Bye bye.
Right.